January 18, 1944, outside the ruined village of Leningradka, Ukraine. The winter wind sliced through the smoldering wreckage of German armor that dotted the frozen fields. Among the advancing columns of the U.S. 2nd Armored Division, a group of tankers stumbled upon something that left them silent with awe and disbelief. Half buried in snow, its gun elevated toward the horizon as if frozen mid-battle, stood the most feared tank of the war, a German Tiger II. Its thick, pitted armor was scarred by hundreds of hits from 75mm and 76mm rounds that had simply bounced off. The massive 82mm KWK-36 gun loomed like the mouth of a cannon fortress, its muzzle blackened by soot. Around it, dead pines lay snapped like matchsticks from its shell blasts. For years, Allied crews had heard stories of the Tiger's invincibility tanks destroyed at 2,000 yards, shells deflected like pebbles and platoons wiped out before they could even return fire. Now, for the first time, American tankers had captured one, intact. But as Army ordnance officers and mechanics gathered to examine the mechanical monster, they discovered that beneath its terrifying exterior, the Tiger was a creature of contradictions, a masterpiece of engineering that defied practicality. Tiger, I officially designated Panzerkampfwagen 6 AUSFE, was built for dominance, not endurance. Its Maybach, HL-230 P45 engine, an advanced 12-cylinder gasoline power plant delivering 700 horsepower, could push its 57-ton bulk barely 25 miles per hour, on flat terrain, but at a devastating cost in fuel. When the Americans topped off the Tiger's enormous 540-liter tank and drove it under controlled conditions, they were stunned. It barely made 120 miles before sputtering dry, in combat with starts. Stops idling and maneuvering under fire, that range dropped to less than 60 miles. The tank that could terrify entire battalions was, in truth, a logistical nightmare. The Americans began testing every aspect of the vehicle. Engineers from the 3rd Ordnance Battalion meticulously measured the armor thickness 100 mm at the front, 80 mm on the sides, rolled and welded with precision far beyond standard Allied manufacturing. But they also noted how each plate had been machined, ground, and hand-fitted, a process that consumed weeks in the factory. Its overlapping interleaved road wheels provided excellent weight distribution, but clogged instantly with mud and froze solid in snow. The tracks, each weighing over a ton, required a special crane to lift during maintenance. Inside, the crew compartment was narrow, hot, and mechanically fragile. Gear shifts required 2 men working in rhythm to prevent damage to the transmission. For every Tiger that rolled into battle, German supply columns had to carry spare parts, special lubricants, and recovery vehicles capable of towing 60 tons, an impossible burden on the retreating Eastern Front. The American officers who first drove the captured Tiger could not help but marvel at its precision, its hydraulic turret. Traverse could swing the massive gun smoothly. Its optics, built by Zeiss, were so sharp that U.S. gunners compared them to watchmaker's glass. In the rangefinder, the battlefield appeared in uncanny detail, and the Tiger could hit targets accurately. At over 1,500 yards, twice the effective range of the standard M4 Sherman's 75mm gun. Yet when they looked deeper, they saw the seeds of Germany's downfall in its very design. The Tiger's clutch burned out under strain. The Maybach engine, though powerful, overheated easily when pushed. Its air filters clogged within hours on dusty roads, and its high-octane fuel consumption was so extreme that a single Tiger company could drain thousands of gallons in a day. On a battlefield where fuel lines were constantly cut by Allied air power, these steel beasts became stranded, abandoned, or destroyed by their own crews to avoid capture. When the Americans rolled their Sherman alongside the captured Tiger, the contrast was striking. The Sherman looked almost toy, like thin-skinned, lightly armed, and simple. But the ordnance men knew it could be built in less than 10 days, shipped overseas by rail and sea, and repaired in the field by untrained mechanics. The Tiger required a factory, the Sherman required a wrench. That was the lesson American tankers took away from that frozen January field, that the war was no longer about individual power, but about endurance, mobility, and mass. The German Tiger was a monument to brilliance, chained by arrogance. And in that field, as American crews watched the snow settle around its steel carcass, they realized that this mighty predator had run out of range both in fuel and in time. When the captured Tiger was shipped back to Allied lines for testing, it was sent to the Ordnance proving grounds at Isigny, France, and later to the Bovington and Aberdeen facilities for deeper evaluation. The results astonished engineers and commanders. Alike in controlled tests on hard ground, the Tiger consumed fuel at a rate of nearly 5 gallons per mile, a figure that horrified logistics officers used to the Sherman's 2 on soft or muddy terrain. The rate doubled. Tank historians later confirmed that a full-strength German heavy tank battalion of 45 Tigers required more than 4,000 liters of gasoline just to move 100 kilometers for the Wehrmacht, already crippled by Allied bombing campaigns on refineries and railways. This meant that every Tiger's roar came at the cost of starving dozens of other vehicles. American crews accustomed to the mass-produced simplicity of the M4 could not fathom the intricacy of the Tiger's systems. It took them nearly 2 hours to start the vehicle from cold, warming the oil, pressurizing hydraulics, and synchronizing gearboxes. Every lever, every switch had its own procedure. And while its gun, the fearsome 80 mm KDWK-36, remained unmatched in precision and power, the Americans noted how its ammunition, each shell weighing over 20 kilograms, limited storage capacity to only 92 rounds. The interior was cramped, noisy, and often filled with exhaust fumes that made prolonged operations miserable. Yet when fired, the weapon was devastating easily, punching through any Allied tank of the period. To fully understand it, U.S. Ordnance specialists ran live fire trials pitting captured Tigers against American M4s, British Churchills, and even experimental Pershings. The results confirmed what frontline reports had long suggested: frontal armor penetration against a Tiger was nearly impossible below 500 yards for a 75mm gun, and marginal even for the newer 76mm. The only reliable way to kill it was from the flank or rear, or by airstrike, but these same tests revealed its Achilles heel: the Tiger's mechanical fragility after just a few hours of running. Underload bearings failed, track pins bent, and engine heat spiked dangerously. Maintenance logs from German units corroborated these issues entire. Battalions could be immobilized simply by mud or cold for every hour in combat. The Tiger demanded 10 in repair in comparison. American tank units kept their Shermans operating continuously with field workshops, swapping engines like tires and rearming faster than the enemy could advance in the end. The Tiger was a weapon built for short bursts of terror, not prolonged war. Its psychological impact far exceeded its actual battlefield presence. Out of 1347 Tiger I tanks ever built, fewer than half were operational at any given time. The rest sat broken, stranded, or cannibalized for parts. When Allied intelligence officers compiled their post-war reports, they concluded that the Tiger's most crippling enemy was not Allied firepower. It was logistics. A single Tiger consumed as much fuel as 6 trucks and required maintenance manpower equal to an entire armored platoon. Even the German tank crews admitted it in a captured diary from a Tiger commander in the 503rd Heavy Tank Battalion. An entry read, "Our enemy is not the Tommy or the Yank. It is distance." Those words echoed across the testing grounds as American engineers closed their evaluations. They had immense respect for German engineering, but none envied its complexity. What they learned from the Tiger-shaped post-war design philosophy, the balance between power and practicality, between armor and autonomy, it wasn't lost on them that the Tiger's fearsome 80mm gun later inspired the US 19mm and British 17-pounder designs. But its massive weight and poor range became cautionary tales. The Tiger had been conceived for victories on short, concentrated fronts like those of 1941, but by 1944 the war had become one of endurance across vast, fuel-starved battlefields. America's factories, not its tanks, won that contest as US soldiers stood beside the captured Tiger at Aberdeen. Posing for photographs, they joked that it was a gasoline-eating dragon. But beneath the laughter was a sobering truth the Tiger had represented. The height of German industrial ambition and the limits of its reach in its steel belly lay the contradiction of the Reich itself. technical brilliance consumed by its own excess. The men who once feared its thunder now watched it rust under foreign skies, a silent testament to how even the mightiest war machine cannot outrun the laws of supply, distance, and time.